This is Daily Blast Live. We're talking about what you're talking about.
You all ready for this?
This is a sham.
No. Y'all, just stop.
Get real. Welcome to DBL. Happy Monday, everybody. I'm Tori. I changed my hair again. No, I'm Jeff in for Tori as usual. How you guys feeling? Happy Monday.
Yeah. Good. I'm feeling good. How are you feeling?
I feel good.
I had an amazing weekend. Yeah,
I did too. A little sledding with the family, get some outdoors going. Yeah, I feel good.
Skiing.
No, sledding.
Yeah, I was skiing. That was
you went skiing.
She's like, I leveled up.
I was about to say I'm an adult. I'm like, you're still young. Yeah, I don't know if I want to risk it anymore with the skiing, but I went sledding. That's good enough for me. All right, guys, let's get started. We're starting today with Prince Harry, who is dropping all sorts of bombshells on his social media or on his media tour. He's promoting his new memoir called Spare. It comes out tomorrow. In his interview last night with Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes, Harry went after the Queen consort, his stepmother, Camilla. Let's take a look.
She was the villain. She was the third person in the marriage.
How was she dangerous?
Because of the need for her to rehabilitate her image.
That made her dangerous?
That made her dangerous because of the connections that she was forging within the British press. And there was open willingness on both sides to trade of information. And with a family built on hierarchy, and with her on the way to being Queen Consort, there was going to be people or bodies left in the street because of that.
So obviously we're going to give our thoughts, but DBL Nation, we want to hear from you. What do you think of this and whose side are you on? We're going to call it Meghan and Harry or the royal families. Go to dblvote.com to weigh in. Steph, I got to start with you.
I mean, about Camilla, I understand, which is really sad, why Camilla, the royal family, the institution in quotes, would feel that Camilla has to change her image because she is in line to be the Queen's consort, literally in a matter of a few months.
What does that mean
official.
exactly, Steph?
So she won't be queen, but the Queen consort is like you're the partner of the king, or you can be the king's consort. Does that make sense?
But she can never be the queen.
No, she'll never be queen.
Vice president, quote? Is that okay?
You're like second.
You're number two?
You're like number two, but she doesn't really have that much power. She's more like
vice president.
Yeah. No,
that's what I was saying. Okay, but number two.
Number two. She's his partner. She's his wife now, and I think I understand where Harry's coming from. That's awful because obviously someone's in line of fire, and sadly it's obviously Harry and Meghan, isn't it? Which doesn't make it right by any means, but I can understand that mentality of that, like the royal family colluding and deciding, how are we going to spin this to make Camilla look better? Because let's be honest, she was so hated and still has got the worst reputation as being the third wheel in the marriage, the breakup of Diana and Charles, for a very long time. So I think she's had that battle, which doesn't make it right by any means, but I can see how that's happened.
You know what helped me really understand this whole dynamic is like watching Succession and like just understanding things from everybody's point of view. I think as an American, especially a black dude from Cleveland, Queen consort, that goes over my head a little bit. But when you watch something like Succession, why do I have to say that word over and over again? You understand like where the dad is coming from, where the younger siblings, how they're jockeying for power, how they're jockeying for favor, and you understand about like public spin and like, hey, something bad happened in our company. How do we make this look okay? So I do understand, even if I don't agree, it really has helped me understand everybody's position and trying to make sure that whatever their image that they're putting out is as palatable as possible and sets them up for the most amount of success. And it's really kind of selfish, but that's and when you get to that level, you kind of have to be.
I am just constantly impressed with Harry and Meghan, but in this particular situation, because it was Harry's interview, just the idea of him being able to keep things together for as long as he has. I mean, most people would have self-destructed. Most people likely would have had far more indications that they were ready to pop their top long before Harry has done this. You have to remember also that it's Camilla, yes, but Camilla was the third person in his mother's marriage. Right. When the issues were coming out and there were articles about Diana, that's his mother, and now they're looking to sacrifice his wife in order for this same woman. I mean, anybody.
Yeah,
anybody
sure.
have a parent or step parent or, you know, like how would that play in your family? You don't have to be a royal to understand that. I think with 50% of marriages ending in divorce, we can understand those dynamics.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of it's relatable to the public taking away all the status and things like that. A lot of people have family issues like that, right?
I would say everybody.
I think every family has got something.
Of course they do. Of course they do. And now I thought it was interesting that you watch Succession to understand the royal family.
I think that is
instead of the Netflix show. Right. You know what I mean?
I think that is so valid, though. I think that really explains, and also I think when you get to a certain level like that, it becomes so much more cutthroat and ruthless, and the stakes are so high. It's not just like who didn't turn up to the Thanksgiving dinner and you hate it and don't come next year without that cranberry sauce. Like this is, another level of scrutiny and trauma.
Well, we got a couple more beats because he's doing his tour, as we said, and we're going to leave that tag board up so you guys keep voting. So another big revelation from the 60 Minutes interview was that Harry believed for years that Princess Diana faked her death. Let's take a look.
You didn't believe she was dead?
For a long time. I just refused to accept that she was gone.
Why did you want to see it?
Mainly proof that she was in the car, proof that she was injured, and proof that the very paparazzi that chased her into the tunnel were the ones that were taking photographs of her lying half dead on the backseat of the car.
Now, I'm not a psychologist, but having believed that for a point of time in your life has to be disturbing, right? To think that your own mother would leave you because of what's happening.
I mean, that just goes to show how bad and how traumatic.
Right, it does.
And to be honest, purely toxic his living environment and situation was, and the fact that at 12 years old he believed that until he was in his 20s, thinking it was that bad his mum would come back for him. And I mean, that is hope and desperation at its finest, which is awful, isn't it? Like, that is so awful. And he said as well, William thought the same.
And it shows you what he must have been observing, Erica, in order to, if somebody's life was so bad that you were like, if you faked your own death, I would get it. Like, imagine what you've seen for somebody to that may be a thought in your head and it seems plausible to the point where you need visual proof that it didn't happen. I think that speaks more to like an honesty when he says, I looked at this person go through hell every single day and I completely understand if they fake their own death and I need to see that they didn't. That really struck me.
I think at that point in the Netflix doc, Harry and Meghan, was really where it became very clear. We use these words, toxicity, and that everything was, you know, that people were playing games on the inside versus the outside, like all this stuff. These two young boys at this time never received therapy. Like, they didn't receive therapy. Instead, they took over for where their mothers, like all the information was coming out in the media, they became the hunted. Like, I don't understand how Harry is still like a sane person, to be quite honest, because this is like too much for anybody.
Yeah,
too much.
Well, I want to get to this last beat before we go. We have 2 minutes left. So in another interview Harry did with the British press, he was asked about branding the royal family racist in his interview, if you remember, with Oprah. Here's how Harry responded. Take a look.
In the Oprah interview, you accuse members of your family of racism. You don't even...
No, we didn't.
Well,
the British press said that.
Right.
Did Meghan ever mention that they were racist?
She said there were troubling comments about
There was
skin
concern
color.
about his skin colour.
Right. Wouldn't you describe that as essentially racist?
I wouldn't, not having lived within that family.
So here's what I thought was interesting about that. We talked about that for the past year, right? Is the royal family inherently racist and things like that? Now he's saying that wasn't even on the table, right? He said they were not.
They didn't say that.
Right, but since he did that interview with Oprah, everyone just assumed that's what it was.
Well, if you describe something, like if I say, hey, Jeff and I went to the store and for some reason the clerk came to me and checked my bag but never even looked at Jeff.
Right.
I don't have to say that this is a racist thing. I'm just simply describing my experience, and other people can get to the verdict of what that might mean. I feel like, especially in this situation, I really take issue with anybody having to be like, well, was it said, what is it not said? What was said, people aren't disputing was the truth. The question was asked. If people deduce that based on who the family is, based on what that what was said, those are two different things. You don't have to say, like, it's not their responsibility to be like, yeah, this family's racist. It's their responsibility to speak their truth. Now, we're not dumb. That's a racist thing to say.
Right, but I totally get what you're saying, and you're right. My thing in that moment, in that interview, I thought he was taking up for the royal family, as opposed to like kind of just leaving it where it was.
I think it was I think it was the label. He's saying because everyone's so stuck on the label, we didn't label them that. We spoke our truth.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll discuss it more in the break. Check us out on YouTube, and let's check out these poll results before we go. Ooh, Team Harry and Meghan, 69%. The royal family, 31%. So you guys are on Harry and Meghan's side. Coming up on DBL, where is it okay to take little kids? I love this conversation. Fancy restaurants, bars, movie theaters. We want to hear from you. Plus, Demar Hamlin's cheers on the Bills from his hospital bed. We're going to talk about that also coming up next. What am I talking about?
It's a new year and DBL is all the talk. Let's get it going. We had a lot to talk about last year.
I'm flexing every day.
And we're not stopping in 2023.
I'll see you guys on the flip side. All right, so we'll continue that conversation of that last interview Harry did. Again, I thought Harry was kind of defending the royal family in that instance.
He did go on to do that, yeah.
So what did you think of that, Steph?
I think what he's saying is accurate. He didn't say the royal family are racist. I do think Meghan, in her words, in her experience as a biracial woman, was alluding to that for sure. Exactly. And Harry goes on to say, growing up in England, growing up in that family, I know it was unconscious bias, and I can see that now. But at the time, he didn't know that. It was more Meghan that brought that to his attention.
I could see that.
If that makes sense.
Is it weird that I wasn't shocked by any of this?
But he's saying that the British press were the ones who then spun it from Meghan saying, hey, this is my experience, this is what I dealt with, this is what it was said, to then the royal family then took that into that they were accusing them of racism, which isn't actually what they said. So he's what he's saying is right, if I'm making any sense.
Yeah, I think here's where I become uncomfortable. I don't feel like this needs to be a splitting of hairs. If something was said and it's unconscious bias or it's a racial issue or it's racist, then it just is what it is, kind of like it was said the way that it was said. I don't feel like if I say something to my experience and it is something that's racist, that I need to come back and then qualify it with a lot of other language in order for other people to feel comfortable. I think at the very foundation of racism is the discomfort and the institutionalization of the idea that someone is more superior than another person. So for me, I don't feel like that needs to be made clear at all if I'm speaking to my experience, because that is my experience.
And I get it. Yeah, I don't know how much time we have. We don't have any time. But yeah, I
Welcome back. I love this. The NFL paid tribute to Buffalo Bills player Demar Hamlin, who suffered cardiac arrest during a game last week, if you don't remember. Players across the league wore shirts like these that said love for Demar with his jersey number 3, and ESPN anchors turned the E's on their microphones around to make it look like a number 3. And we do have an update. Demar posted this from his hospital bed. Look at that. He also said, game day, nothing I want more to be running out of the tunnel with my brothers, God using me in a different way today. Tell someone you love them today. Let's go Bills.
Wow, what a great guy. You know,
I mean, the speed of that, Al. Last week, I didn't know this would be the outcome.
I was sure that he had passed away on the field.
I'm not even joking.
And
yes.
we can keep 100. I was on the group text, and I was texting you, Jeff, and we've watched a lot of football.
Yeah.
You've played a lot of football, and when you see things that don't make sense, it didn't look good. So the fact that we're even having this conversation is a blessing, a miracle, honestly. And when I look at this young man, his football career is obviously probably in jeopardy, but I just think in a weird way, this accident took that helmet off of him, took those shoulder pads off of him, so we can get a good look at this human being, and he can share his light, because I think he will touch so many lives throughout the course of his life, this long life he has left. So I hope he can fulfill his professional goals, but I think underneath that helmet is a spirit that needs to be shared. And unfortunately, this may be the incident that brought it to us, but I think he is going to do big things, way bigger things than playing safe.
But how does he realize that after a week, right? Part of which he wasn't even conscious, and him saying God wants different things from me today, knowing like that's his role, exactly what you're talking about. At 24 years old, it kind of just blows my mind.
No, I think if you have something that's so traumatic that literally his whole world has changed, like he nearly didn't even have his life anymore. So I think at that point, he knows his life is forever going to be different, and he knows now what it's like. I don't want to say it's given him a purpose, or maybe it has given him a purpose. Like, like my life now has to be on a completely different path, and he can help so many people, or he knows now what his purpose is.
Yeah.
But
and
it's
he was
amazing.
already doing that. He was already doing tour drives, so just imagine what he can do now, Eric.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just see it like he's clearly a man of faith, and he's walking by faith, not by sight, and that's just how some people are rooted. That's how so it's like, if this isn't, what is it for me, my higher power, whatever you believe in, if it's not this, then I have to trust that this is going to be my path. So he just seems very rooted in faith.
But to not, just being an ex-football player, right, not getting to a level of that at all, I mourned my football career, right? I'm like, I'm never going to walk on that field again. I'm never going to play football again. Such a big part of my life. For him to wrap his arms around that in such a fast period of time and saying my path is somewhere else, I mean, wow.
No, but I think sometimes when something like that happens, which is really hard for us to even fathom, but then literally your whole world changes in a complete second, and that's it. You can't, there is no turning back, there is no other way. And he just knows it so deeply within himself, whether it's through God, whether it's, well, a voice inside of him, whatever it may be, his family, who knows. But gosh, I think he's amazing.
There was some really, listen, we all know I believe in God and divine intervention and things like that. One player from the Buffalo Bills ran back 2 different kickoffs, right? And that hasn't happened in 3 years and 3 months. So the number 3, the quarterback for the Bills cried about that, kind of like,
man,
it's just some of the things.
There was a lot of emotion that day from everybody that was watching it. It just, because of where this story started and where it ended, I think about this young man, I think about myself at 24, and we might as well have been from different planets. For him to embrace this change and embrace his new life. If we woke up and we couldn't speak anymore, I can't do stand-up, you can't do DBL, I don't know if in a week I'm like, this is my new path. It might take me a year to pull myself together, and the turnaround time for this young man is something that I will never forget as long as I'm on this planet.
And another cool tribute before we go. One of the Buffalo Bills players scored and gave the game ball to the guy who resuscitated.
Yes,
Demar, very cool. We'll be right back.
It's that time of year again. It's cold, like really cold. But it's not as cold as it is where I'm from, which is New Jersey. I thought that the warmer winters would feel a little better. They don't. It's still freezing. My dad says when I moved from somewhere cold to somewhere warm, my blood thinned. Is that true?
To verify, I consulted the Mayo Clinic and heard from Dr. P.J. Miller, assistant professor of hematology and oncology at Atrium Health Wake Forest Baptist. They conclude the claim is false.
So this is actually what we'd refer to as an old wives' tale, meaning there is no significant medical evidence behind this question that actually happens. But even with saying that, that is something that a lot of people do experience temperature differently when moving from a northern climate to a southern climate. And a lot of that just has to do with the perception and getting used to a warmer climate or getting used to a colder climate.
That said, your blood pressure can change with climate. Mayo Clinic found blood pressure is generally higher in the winter and lower in the summer. Low temperatures cause blood vessels to narrow, so your blood needs more pressure to move through the thinner veins and arteries. That doesn't mean your blood thickness is changing, even though it's reasonable for you to think so.
I myself grew up in New England, and then I actually lived in the Mid-Atlantic for a while before living in a tropical climate for a couple years. And now I live in North Carolina. And I do remember the first time that I traveled from the tropical climate back to a New England winter and remembering how truly cold that winter was. But that, again, was all perception.
So in conclusion, we verified Tom's claim is false. No, your blood does not thin moving from a warmer climate to a colder one or vice versa.
Welcome back. Is it ever okay to take your kids to a bar or put them on a plane in first class? The debate is getting heated already. One woman talked about how her date night at an expensive restaurant was ruined by a family with 2 kids sitting next to them. Uh-oh, it might have been me. This happened after 7:30. It wasn't me. And it included strollers, screaming, and even a few games of peekaboo. We should point out that half of us up here have kids and the other half doesn't. So where are some places, Al, that you should never take kids? And if you want me to start with the restaurant, I made dinner reservations at 4 p.m. to celebrate my wife's birthday.
There you
Just
go.
to put in perspective what I do with my kids.
That's family time, and there are family kind of restaurants where you can kind of, that's okay. Like there's, you know, what's the one, not Old Country Buffet, but the one with the rocking chairs.
Sizzler? Oh,
yeah.
Cracker
Barrel.
Like you take your kids to one of those family, Applebee's, it's a family style thing. Mom and dad can still get their drinks in the bar, but there's like, it's a very family style.
I gotcha.
There are restaurants.
Little Outback Steakhouse?
Yeah, look, you can even do Outback, but there are restaurants that are not for kids, Erica. And I have kids, and they were pretty chill kids. But when you're on a date night, bill's gonna be over $150. Like, I don't want my kids to interrupt that.
Yes.
You know, and I do try and be conscious of that. I don't know if all parents do that, but what are you guys without kids? What do you think?
I mean, I genuinely don't mind if there's children, so long as, I mean, there's going to be moments, like they might cry, they might, I don't know, spill the food on the floor, whatever. They might cry if they're on an airplane. I think that's normal in its life, and it's to be expected, right? I mean, gosh, you'd be like the devil if you didn't if you hate on that stuff.
Yeah, but first class.
But I think there comes a point when, like Jeff said, you have to be proactive. So you're not taking your child out, like a young 4-year-old, at 7:30 at night for a meal. It's just crazy. That's so silly, because they're going to be tired, they're going to be cranky, they need to go to bed. Or it depends on your child's personality and, you know, how they are in those situations. Every child is so different. So I've got friends, like, they can take their kids out, they are so good, they're quiet, they have their moments at times, but then it's on the parent as well to address it. If your child is kicking off for more than 5 minutes, we got to go home.
I like that term, kicking off.
Where are you at, Erica?
Yeah.
Do you like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, a nice restaurant, some kid pressing his face against your booth window?
Yeah, I don't really think about it unless it's something where they're like losing their minds. But when I go out with my brother and my two young nieces, he's so quick with, like, if he sees something happening, before she can even get to a scream, it's just like he scoops her and they are just gone.
Like the bodyguard.
It's like,
Just Kevin Costner, take her out.
So I'm generally like, well, I'll get this to go. Okay, well, you can eat this in the car. Like, I don't know. Like, hey, I just watch what they do.
Not a lot of parents have that self-awareness, to be perfectly honest with you.
It's really interesting that they don't.
And it's insane.
That's what's bad, when it's just going on. And like, was it Erica or Jeff? One of you guys were on a plane and someone was just kicking.
Oh, that's happened to me. Yeah.
And then, like, at that point, it's like, as the parent, you need to be aware of what your child is doing. Like, they might do it once or twice, like, okay, you need to stop, this isn't okay. Like, being aware, like you said, like your brother is of the surroundings, how your children are behaving.
I will slide in that first class was on there. I mean, what does it matter if you have your kids in first class or the back? I mean, like, I don't know about that one.
Well, you paid extra for first class, so it's just like if you paid extra because you're traveling, whatever, and you need to get that sleep. You're coming from Japan to LA, and you need to sleep to go to your meeting, and there's a kid crying in first class. You kind of are paying for the luxury of not having to deal with that.
Yeah, but the parents also paying for the luxury of being able to have their family together.
Yeah, I'm on the other side on that one.
All right.
A plane is tough because there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back.
The two most popular COVID vaccines in the U.S., Pfizer and Moderna, are both what are known as mRNA vaccines. mRNA stands for messenger ribonucleic acid, and it's a critical component of cell function. Verify viewer Scott said he heard the mRNA in the COVID-19 vaccine can stay in your body a long time after you get the shot. So is that true? Let's verify. Our sources, the CDC, the National Library of Medicine, University of Missouri Healthcare, Nebraska Medicine, and Stuart Ray, an infectious diseases professor at Johns Hopkins. mRNA acts as a set of instructions telling cells how to make certain proteins. Ribosomes, the protein-making machines inside the cells, use those instructions. Once they're done making the protein, they discard the instructions, which then naturally break down. Now, the way a traditional vaccine works, you get a weakened version of a virus. Then your immune system is easily able to defeat it, and in the process forms antibodies for it. So the next time you're exposed to that virus, your body can quickly recognize and kill it. mRNA vaccines work similarly, but instead of the whole virus, you just get the instructions for one of the virus's proteins. Your ribosomes create a little bit of that protein, which by itself is harmless, and the immune system quickly recognizes that the protein is foreign and creates antibodies for it. Then the ribosome discards the instructions, the mRNA, just like it does for anything else it makes. All our sources say once discarded, the mRNA breaks down usually within a few hours, a few days at most. It's actually a pretty fragile substance, which is why the vaccine has to be handled carefully and kept cold. Dr. Stuart Ray told us, quote, "We know from many decades of work that mRNA is short-lived, among the least persistent of the macromolecules in our body. In no instance have we found mRNA that lasts for a long time in living tissue." So we can verify no. mRNA from the COVID-19 vaccine does not stay in your body a long time. With your Verify, I'm Casey Decker.
Are you skeptical of headlines and what you see on social media? We are too. The Verify newsletter helps you distinguish between true and false information by answering your questions. It provides fast facts on trending topics, spotlights major stories, and even includes a daily fun fact for all those trivia buffs out there. Get Verify's fast facts delivered every weekday to your email inbox.
During the pandemic, Congress passed 3 laws to send stimulus checks to millions of Americans. The last round of payments went out in March of 2021, and Verify viewer Laura contacted us to see if any more money is on the way from the federal government. So Laura, let's verify. Our sources are the IRS and a search of congressional legislation. The money for each of the 3 stimulus checks was distributed by the Internal Revenue Service. We searched legislation passed by the last Congress, and they did not approve a 4th stimulus check. The IRS tells Verify they haven't received any new instructions from Congress. So far, the new Congress hasn't announced plans for a 4th check. So, no, the federal government is not currently planning to send a 4th stimulus check to eligible Americans. If you didn't receive money from any of the past rounds of checks, then the IRS says you still have time to get it. Just file your 2020 or 2021 taxes and claim the recovery rebate credit. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis.
Welcome back. One last quick story. An 82-year-old Army vet finally gets to retire from his job at Walmart, all thanks to TikTok. A customer posted this video of Butch Marion ringing up items on the app. It went viral with 2 million views. The customer started a GoFundMe that raised $100,000. Butch said he'll use the money to visit Florida to see his daughters and grandchildren who he hasn't hugged in years.
Wow.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Bless him.
Yeah, 90. Yeah, you can't be working that. I'm just happy it happened.
He's earned it. He has earned it.
From all of us at DBL, a little tear, buddy. We love you.